And the reason I'm thrilled to be part of this dynamic team, this partnership, is because 45 years ago this month, I was living in the mountains of Rwanda, working for Diane Fossey, studying the grand and great grandparents of the gorillas behind me. This was filmed a couple of years ago, and the mountain gorillas have thrived. They're one of the few conservation success stories, and they've thrived because they are so fascinating that people have been prepared to pay a lot of money to go and see them. And that model of ecotourism to protect a small population of endangered species is fine if the level of income matches the cost of that conservation and the local communities can benefit from them. But most gorillas live a long way from any tourists, any access to tourists, and therefore that model cannot apply across Africa. And one of the things that I was fascinated by while I was in Rwanda studying the gorillas was the presence of elephants in that same forest elephants. And gradually, as I moved around Africa, I got to visit areas where forest elephants and gorillas interacted ecologically as well as occasionally behaviorally. And this was all seen to be of academic interest. It is fascinating to people to learn about the habits of our near relatives and of species with large brains and complex societies like elephants and whales and dolphins that don't resemble us anatomically, but where we can see parallels in their family behavior. It is fascinating, but it has not, apart from the ecotourism income, been seen as of economic importance, despite the fact that it clearly is. The communities that live around the Virunga volcanoes benefit from the rainwater that falls on those mountains and the slowing of the runoff, which allows streams to continue to flow even during the drier season when there isn't much rainfall because of the giant sponge on the mountain. And we've talked for years about the ecological importance of gorillas and elephants in maintaining that. Carbon wasn't even part of our thinking back then. I'm thrilled that Fabio is following this presentation because he can talk about the science, but let us just think of what this is doing on a broader scale. I've spent much of the last 45 years asking people for money because conservation has been funded by the philanthropic sector, families who at the end of the month have paid all their bills, they've got a few quid left and they might give it to a charity, and some of those charities might help wildlife and some of those might be actually helping gorillas. So it's a subset of a subset of a subset that gets a philanthropic dollar. Or, governments pay for conservation in national parks, and they do that from taxpayers' dollars or aid money in the case of developing countries. And again, conservation tends to be at the bottom of the list of priorities. There's health, there's defense, there's education, there's development, all these important things, transport. And if there's a little bit left at the end, we should really help save nature. But it's not perceived to be important. Suddenly, because of the growing awareness of the threat of climate change and the growing awareness of the threat of biodiversity loss, there is a rising up of the status of that problem in the priorities of both philanthropists and governments. But as Ralph said, the ecology is seen as an externality. And what Rebalance Earth has the potential to do, and we are going to make it happen because we're all very determined in our different ways, is to internalize the cost of conservation so that when you go out and buy a bottle of wine or a loaf of bread or a laptop or a phone, the company that makes those products has already balanced their carbon budget by investing in nature through Rebalance Earth. And you, the customer, you may still decide to give to a charity at the end of the month. And as a trustee of several charities, I hope you do. But the main cost of conservation can come, as Ralph says, through the markets, so that consumers, whatever they're consuming, know that a chunk of the money that they're buying a product for is going to protect the ecosystems that provide the services that keep us all alive. So it's about ensuring we have a functional biosphere. The biosphere is a thin film of life on the big ball of rock we call home, Earth, and that's the bit we have to protect. And within that biosphere, the keystone species that hold the ecosystems together are what we're focusing on. And for one example of that, forest elephants, it's now Fabio's turn to explain what he discovered in one of the most exciting and perhaps world-changing discoveries around.